A report containing details on the spending of the two historic $1 trillion coronavirus rescue packages, the CARES Act, you may recall. That report's going to be released tomorrow, and we should get a better sense of just how the money was spent. The bill allocated money for small businesses, hospitals, unemployment benefits, and other necessities. It's been 3 months now since it was signed into law, and while some funds and loans have gone directly to individuals and families, the transparency and distribution is being called into question. So Politico congressional reporter Melania Zanona is following this and joins us now. In addition, Melanie, the expected report, we're going to be also hearing from inspectors general who have called on Congress to be more helpful when it comes to oversight and transparency. We know when there's a lot of money, there can be a lot of abuse. So what do we know so far about what guardrails have been put in place in terms of transparency and how this money is being spent?
Well, there have been guardrails put in place. The question is, are they actually working as they intended? There was a congressional commission that was established by the CARES Act, but it hasn't really gotten off the ground yet. Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell were supposed to jointly appoint a chairman to that commission. They haven't agreed on someone yet, so that hasn't gotten off the ground. Then there are independent watchdog agencies, as well as a select panel, oversight panel on coronavirus that the House established, but both of them have said they're running into stonewalling from the Trump administration, so they aren't able to get information and other details, even as trillions of dollars of taxpayer money is already going out the door. So as Congress is preparing to potentially craft another coronavirus bill, there is going to be a greater push for greater oversight and greater transparency.
So let me ask you about this, Melanie. In a reversal late last week, the Treasury Department and Small Business Administration said they will release information on who has received money for PPP loans. Why did they initially decline to be transparent about taxpayer money, and what will this disclosure reveal?
So they are agreeing to disclose some borrowers. This comes after pressure from not only Congress, but also a lot of public outrage as well, that they didn't know where their taxpayer dollars were going. Initially, the administration said we don't want to disclose potentially revealing information about these companies or reveal proprietary information. We heard a lot of Republicans in Congress saying we don't want to name and shame businesses by putting this information out there. But the Treasury Department will start releasing, as soon as today potentially, all the people who took loans that were over $150,000. Now, this is a step in the right direction, but lawmakers say this isn't enough because it only represents about 15% of the people overall who took loans. So there's still about 85% of people who we don't know, and businesses we won't know who took these loans that are appropriated by Congress. And a lot of lawmakers argue we should be able to have that information public.
Yeah, well, this Paycheck Protection Program has sort of been riddled with controversy from the very beginning. And you've been doing some reporting on lawmakers who have some connections to businesses that actually received some of this money. Can you tell us a little more about that?
That's right. There are at least 4 members of Congress that we know about who have in some way benefited from this PPP loans program. Either they have taken the loans personally for themselves, for their businesses, or they have a spouse that works for a company that may have taken a loan. And look, these lawmakers say they had their best intentions, that these companies were taking these loans to keep Americans employed. They also have made clear that they had no influence over the application or the decision-making process. But there are a lot of questions being raised about transparency and potential conflicts of interest, especially because at least 2 of these lawmakers, Republican Roger Williams of Texas and Republican Vicky Hartzler of Missouri, both voted against a bill in Congress that would have actually required more transparency and would have disclosed the names of some of these borrowers, at least for those who took loans over $2 million. So I think there are still a lot of questions, and we're also being told by sources that there are even more lawmakers who could be potentially benefiting from this program.
So let me ask you about this, Melanie. In April, a separate relief package allocated $25 billion for coronavirus testing. A CBS News analysis of that money shows more than $8 billion of that pot has yet to be spent, even though Democrats are calling for increased contact tracing and data on racial disparities. Have you heard about lawmakers expressing any concerns over the lack of spending on items directly tied to combating COVID-19?
there is a lot of concern, especially from Democrats, but even from Republicans, about the lack of testing and how we still need to ramp that up. And Trump has really inflamed this debate even further by over the weekend saying that he told his people to slow down testing because the cases went up, something he doubled down on. But Dr. Anthony Fauci testified in Capitol Hill yesterday and said, that's not true. In fact, we're doing the opposite. We are ramping up testing. But Democrats are really seizing on these comments. They think they're incredibly damaging for Trump and the GOP. So I do expect that to be another part of the debate as Congress prepares to potentially do another package in the coming weeks here.
The Fed Chair, Jerome Powell, has been pretty outspoken. He's been keeping interest rates pretty low, and they'll probably stay low for the foreseeable future. And he's calling on Congress to do something. Spend some of that money. You can borrow for cheap, spend that money to stabilize the economy. Have you heard any chatter about another relief package?
Well, Senate Republicans initially wouldn't commit to another bill. They said, we want to wait and see what these unemployment numbers look like. They are only now starting to discuss the potential for another package. In fact, Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin was up on Capitol Hill yesterday. He met with Senate Republicans during their lunch, and they started talking about what they want to see in the next package. One priority that Mitch McConnell has made absolutely clear for Republicans is they want to have liability protections for businesses that reopen, because a lot of employers are worried about being sued if one of their employees or customers contracts coronavirus. But Democrats don't like this provision. They're worried it undermines workers. And so I think that's going to be one of the really big flashpoints in the debate. The other thing that at least Trump and Democrats seem to agree on is another round of these stimulus checks that are directly given to households. Democrats want to see that again. Trump has expressed openness to it, but the Republicans we talked to yesterday on Capitol Hill in the Senate all are not embracing this idea. They're kind of throwing cold water on it. So I don't think that's something that could make it in a final package, but it is one of the things being discussed.
Really, really interesting stuff there. Melanie, as always, we appreciate your reporting. Thank you very much. We appreciate it.